Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing the Moon Sport Helix Sense 300 and 450. One common question when it comes to bike taillights is how many lumens do you need for daytime visibility? Moon Sport's answer to that question is the new Helix Sense, which comes in both a 300 lumen and a 450 lumen variation. Not only are these taillights absurdly bright, but they also incorporate a motion sensor to detect when you're braking. You can see we have both variations right here. They're very similar in appearance. Looking at the 450 packaging, you have a nice cutout with the yellow and nice open body, so you can actually interact with the taillight, look at it, touch the button. The back, you have all the specs written on there. And on both, they're nearly identical except for the slightly different size and different outputs. I'll go ahead and take the 450 out of the box and go over the specs. Retail price on these are $69.99 for the 300 and then $80.99 for the 450. The Helix Sense 300 obviously has 300 lumen maximum output, while the 450 has the brighter 450 lumen output. They both have a 300-degree side visibility, so these are really visible from any angle. And they have USB Type-C charging ports, which are great to see on the bike products, as a lot of manufacturers still use micro USB. These also have Moon Sport's variable lumen system, which means you can actually adjust the lumen output in every single mode to the exact value you want by simply ramping it up and down and letting go of the button. The main difference between these two is you can obviously see the 450 is larger and brighter. In terms of what you get with it, you get simple packaging, cardboard box, nice and environmentally friendly. You get the C-post mount, and you can see it actually comes with two different rubber backings. One of them is angled to account for your C-post angle, and the other one's straight. You get a USB Type-C charging cable with the yellow coloring that we see with a lot of the Moon products. You get two zip ties for a little more secure mounting if desired. You get the clamp or the buckle here. So this is really nice if you want to put this on your backpack or clothing. You can just snap this directly on there. And then you have a second strap, which you can use instead of the longer one that's pre-attached. So if you have a smaller diameter seat post or you want to put on your seat stay, you can easily do that. The 300 has nearly identical accessories as well. Now let's take a look at the weight of the lights. Here we have the 450 by itself. That comes in at 46 grams. And then we have the 300, which is slightly smaller. And not surprisingly, a little bit lighter at 36. Then we have the seat post mount with the longer strap, 10 grams. And then the body clip comes in at 6. Visually, the Helix 300 and the 450 are nearly identical. You can see same design. The 450 is simply longer to achieve the higher lumen output and has more battery. So if we focus on one of them, you can see you have a nice large red lens. It's raised too, so from the sides you can actually see the light, and that gives it the 300 degree visibility. It has a cob LED design, which you can tell by all these little circuits, all the LEDs on the circuit board. There's essentially 3 boards, so you can see, depending on which mode you're in, it'll either keep the sides constant and flash the middle, or flash or keep all of them constant uniformly. One power button in the middle, which is really easy to access, and quite a bit of functionality we'll go over a little bit later. Helix Sense printed on the side. This one's a 450, 300 says 300, and on the other side you just have the zigzaggy pattern with the Sense logo here, and then the Moon Sport. They also have Moon printed right onto the lens. So you can see that in some angles, it's actually, you can print it on there. So it's a pretty attractive design, and with a slender design, it really will hide behind your seat post. You have a Garmin style quarter turn mount. It's obviously smaller than a standard Garmin computer mount, but has the same functionality. So it has 2 raised tabs, and you simply line them up and then rotate it. So very secure and very easy to take off. So if you're a commuter or just stopping somewhere for a break, you can easily pop this off, charge it, or just put it in your pocket. You have USB Type-C charging, which again, really nice to see. A lot of the bigger companies still are using micro USB, and a nice big gasket. Also has a very high IP68 rating, which means you can actually put this underwater briefly and not worry about it. Branding is also very simple. As you saw, it's just Moon Sport hidden on here, so a very attractive looking taillight altogether. They also include all the mounts here, which is really nice. So you get the standard C-post mount and two different rubber pieces, so you can pop this off and have the angled one if you have an angled C-post, or leave the flat one if you want to put on your seat stay. Simple rubber strap design with a hook and two different straps. You even include a body clip. Typically this is an extra purchase, and this is great if you want to put this on your backpack, saddlebag, or even clothing. And it's really simple to use. You just slide it on there. And they even have the saddle mount, which is a simple piece. So this will go on your saddle rails. You can see it just slides over, and then again, same design, locks into place. Now the user interface on this is pretty complicated, and that's one disadvantage of a lot of the Moonsport products, especially with one button. They've really overloaded a lot of the action. So normal day-to-day use is pretty simple. You just press it to turn it on, press it again to cycle through these three different flash modes, double press to go to the solid mode. You have two solid modes. And then within each mode, you can actually do a full adjustment of the lumens by simply holding it. And then this will ramp up and down. And you see it flashes when it's at the maximum. And then it will ramp all the way down to the minimum and flash. So pretty simple to use, and you just release it. Now it's a nice feature, but obviously I think most users won't really care. The defaults are pretty good already, so you don't really need to do that much adjustment. There's also a couple other modes. There's a lockout mode and the sense mode, which is the indication that you can do brake sensing. So you can see here there's no light right now. To turn on the brake sensor, you turn the light off, hold it until it flashes. So now it's on, and you can see there's a green flashing light here, which is a nice indicator that the battery, the motion sensor, is actually active. So with the brake sensor, it'll actually go to a solid full brightness setting to indicate people behind you that you're actually slowing down. So you can see off the bike, it's super sensitive just because of the orientation. But even if you do a little bit of slowdown, you can see it'll go full solid. Then you also have the full lockout mode. So if you're transporting this and you don't want it to accidentally turn on, because the button is raised, so you can see if it gets nudged, it'll actually turn on in your backpack. You simply hold it for about 10 seconds. And if you hold it for 15, you can do a full reset back to the factory default. So you can see if I hold it here, it'll toggle the brake sensor on, off. That does the lockout. And if you wait long enough, this is the full factory reset. So a little bit overly complicated, but for day-to-day use, you don't have to worry about those extra functionality. Now let's take a look at the taillight output modes. It comes pre-programmed with a couple of constant modes and a few flash variations. You can see some of them have generic names like mode 1, mode 2, flash 1, flash 2. That's because you can actually adjust the lumen output for each mode using the variable lumen system, so you can really change the runtime. The more interesting one here is the daytime flash. It is very, very bright and goes up to the maximum 450 lumen. And with the 450, it has 11-hour runtime. So you can see here, it is very bright. It'll flash at the lower level, and then the full one to really catch your eye. So it really works well whether you're riding in urban settings or rural settings as we are here. As far as the brake performance, here you can see the daytime flash on the road. It actually works pretty well, but it also does have false positives like any brake sensor. It doesn't know when you're actually braking. It just can sense the deceleration, which can be triggered on potholes or variations in the road. So you actually see up here, it just triggered accidentally and goes to the full 450 lumen, really catching your eye. But when you do actually stop, it does work. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It does reduce the runtime when it gets triggered, but you simply have to use it with caution. It's always going to have a couple of false positives, but otherwise very bright taillight and great for daytime or nighttime use. Now let's do a little comparison between the Helix Sense and some other taillights on the market. Here we have the 450 and the 300. And as I saw earlier, just a slight difference in the height. We've also reviewed some of other Moonsport's taillights, like the Cerberus. You can see it's a 3 LED design. So it actually has an LED on the front, an LED on the side, and then another one on the other side. So a really cool design, and it gives you that 3-headed look with great side visibility, but a little bit bulkier than the Helix Sense, and it doesn't have the brake sensor. And again, the Helix Sense lights are quite bright at 300 and 450 lumen. There are other taillights on the market like the Planet Bike Royo 100. So more traditional design, large transparent body, very bright center LED, and then dual LED design to really catch your eye. Very basic feature set, but much more affordable than the Helix Sense, and comes with a variety of mounts right out of the box, just like the Helix does. There's other form factors out there too. The Knight Rider Bullet 200 is probably one of our favorite. A dual LED design, so you have COB LEDs on the front and rear, so you get these really interesting design patterns, and almost 360-degree visibility, as it's actually wider than the mount itself, so you can see it from almost any angle. But quite a bit bulkier, so if you were to mount this on your seat post, it would really bulge out, while the Helix Sense would kind of hide behind it. They're more traditional taillights, like the Bontrager Flare RT, very popular model, highly focused center LED. So you can see from side angles, it doesn't look that bright, even with the little side windows, but from a direct angle, it is very bright. Much more compact, so it looks really good on your bike, but obviously it doesn't have the power that the Helix Sense does, or the built-in brake sensor. Magicshine has some similar rectangular and square lights. This is their Seemee 200 V2, so it's a little bit sleeker and easier to use than the previous version. And what really separates this from the other lights on the market is the dual LED design. So you can see it has a tracer LED on the bottom that really lights up the road, and also quite bright at 200 lumen. But you can see a little bit more rectangular and doesn't have that big, large face like the Helix Sense. There's smaller variations like the Seemee 150. Doesn't have the bottom tracer LED, but again, quite bright with the dual lighting elements, center LED, and then the ring. So it really depends on what you're looking for. If you want more features, like the brake sensor and the variable Lumen system, that's something you can really only get with the Moon Sport, so it provides a lot of customization. But just different form factor and longer than some of the more traditional taillights. Now let's go over the pros and cons for the Helix Sense taillights. What we like about them is that they are absurdly bright. Whether you pick the 300 or the 450 lumen version, both are more than daytime visible. They also have sleek and modern COB LED designs that hide well behind a seat post. Moonsport also includes quite a few mounts with the lights, so you don't have to purchase them separately, which is always nice. Some of the cons for the taillights is the fact that they just have a basic low battery status indicator. It'd be great to see a multi-level one so you know when you have to recharge it. And that single button interface can be quite complicated. You have the variable Lumen system, you have a lockout mode, and you have the ability to turn the sensor on and off, so an additional button would probably help out here. Taking everything into account would give the Helix Sense taillights an 8.9 out of 10. These are really absurdly bright taillights that have a lot of features. Thanks for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at thesweetcyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist reminding you to enjoy the ride.